In November of 2011, the SmackDown vs. Raw series was officially replaced when WWE 12 made its way to store shelves. This would be the first game in the series to only be released on the then current generation of consoles, including the PS3, Nintendo Wii, and Xbox 360. Now, technically, it's not a complete overhaul, but more of a name change with a few game engine tweaks. Actually, quite a few tweaks, so let's pop this bad boy in and see what we can't find. This is my review of WWE 12 for the Xbox 360. Let's first take a look at the roster. There are quite a few newcomers this year, including Alberto Del Rio, Alex Riley, Husky Harris, Heath Slater, Sin Cara, Daniel Bryan, and more. This is also the first game in the series to feature Jim Ross and Vicky Guerrero as playable characters, which are both part of the DLC content. And speaking of DLC, there are quite a few inclusions here like Batista, Karma, Mick Foley, HBK, The Rock, and the very long overdue addition of the Macho Man Randy Savage, who appeared in WWE All-Stars but hadn't been in a WWE game before that since WWF Raw, which was released back in 1994. WWE 12 also marks the highly anticipated wrestling game return of Brock Lesnar, as well as Kevin Nash, neither of who appeared in the series since Here Comes the Pain, released almost 10 years earlier. They both appear as part of the Legends roster, which is quite vast and includes the likes of Booker T, the Legion of Doom, Eddie Guerrero, Vader, Arn Anderson, and more. The arena selection this year features more non-traditional selections than ever before, with the inclusion of 3 WCW arenas. Now, right off the bat, I was extremely excited to see the return of Nitro, as well as newcomers like Starrcade and Clash of the Champions, but upon further investigation, I discovered that these are not arenas of old, but instead are custom creations that coincide with this year's Road to WrestleMania story, which we'll touch on in a bit. These arenas feature unique set designs that somewhat resemble past WCW stages, but with a current era twist, like Titantrons, LED Minitrons, and sidewalls. The rings themselves are pretty accurate, but show intros are a bit bizarre as they include the late era WCW logos, while the arenas feature classic logos. Nonetheless, I still appreciate the inclusion of the WCW brand period, whether it be old, new, recreated, or duplicated. Other arenas include weekly shows and monthly pay-per-view events from 2010 and 2011, as well as tribute to the troops. Entrances haven't seen much change other than some new animations, but I did notice quite a bit more reverb during entrance themes. It causes these songs to sound more like they would in a live arena setting versus a WWE television broadcast, but I'm not sure if that's what they were going for. The biggest addition in WWE 12 is something THQ calls Predator technology. A lot of people wondered, what does that mean? What does this Predator technology consist of? Well, it adds a lot of new gameplay mechanics to the game, as well as a revamped physics engine and graphical enhancements. I guess technically it's just a reference for anything in the game that's new or improved. So let's take a look at all aspects of this new system, starting with the controls. As other games in the series have done in the past, WWE 12 experiments with a new control layout. All basic attack functions have been relocated to the face buttons, with A now being used to tie up an opponent. Once you've got a hold on an enemy, you can change grapple positions by moving the right analog stick. Each position features a different set of moves that can be performed by pressing A in conjunction with a directional command on the left analog stick. Strong grapples are performed the same way, only your opponent must be in a groggy state. The ultimate control grapples have been completely removed from the series. With the A button being reserved for grapple moves, the button to pick up weapons and exit the ring has been moved to the left bumper. To perform a submission, simply hold the A button once in a tie-up position. The new breaking point submission system is a button-mashing minigame in which the attacker must fill the meter to make an opponent submit, while the defender is trying to deplete it, which will result in the submission being reversed. The new limb targeting system lets the player focus on a specific body part, allowing one to weaken certain limbs, resulting in your opponent becoming more susceptible to submissions when applied to an injured area. This can be done by holding the right bumper and pressing either of the 4 face buttons while in a tie-up with your opponent. The dynamic comeback is a new ability that a player can earn during a match in moments when the opponent is dominating. Simply press the Y button when prompted and the match's momentum will start to swing your way with a series of moves that are played out with a button prompt game. If successful, the player will be rewarded with a signature move. The new pin system ditches the old button mashing mechanic from the past and replaces it with a meter that requires the player to stop a target within the hot zone. This hot zone moves after every pin attempt and becomes smaller as the match progresses, making it harder to kick out over time. While reversals are still performed with the right trigger, the system has been retooled a bit and, in my opinion, has become a little harder to time just right. The silly-looking run animation from last year that occurred after an Irish whip has been replaced, and while the stamina system remains, the animation for a wrestler collapsing after being drained has been ditched and replaced with simply a slower moving walking animation. The AI has been revamped and results in a much more aggressive computer-controlled opponent. I noticed a lot more strikes from my enemy, and combined with the timing change of the reversal system, I became frustrated at times, but oddly, I enjoyed the challenge. Visually, we see a lot of changes here as well, with the removal of almost every on-screen display, including the momentum bars. The camera angles have also been changed to appear more like a WWE broadcast. Another aspect of the Predator technology is realism. Matches now have a better pace, starting out very quick with wrestlers better selling moves as the matches progress. Gone are the moves that map players to certain locations in the ring, meaning if you're John Cena and you perform a 5-knuckle shuffle, he will initiate the move where you and your opponent are located instead of warping the wrestlers into the center of the ring like games of the past. Havoc also continues to improve on the rope physics, which now feature more realistic movement during matches, even bouncing when wrestlers are slammed on the mat. But there are still the occasional awkward moments where the ropes seem to have a mind of their own. Move animations can also now be interrupted, something we'd seen previously like in the WWE GameCube games, but it's not quite as sensitive here. With that being said, the physics engine still leads to a few bugs, mostly associated with hit detection. Due to all the attention that went into the Predator technology and all of its features, we don't see a lot of additions as far as match types go. There is, however, a new backstage area that can be explored in what's now called Free Brawl. If you remember, before the game came out, they hyped up the fact that there are over 40 KO hotspots in this mode, which there are, but unfortunately, there are only a few animations for these hotspots, leading to a lot of repetitive moves. Still, there's definitely some good entertainment value here. It's always fun to slam your opponent's head into a door, or throw him into a car windshield, or even send him flying through a window. Other match types like TLC, ladder, and table are probably where I've spent most of my time. Last year, the new physics engine presented a different aspect to these matches, with better and less linear weapon interaction, which made things a little more unpredictable. It's always fun trying to find out how many different unique ways there are to send your opponent crashing through a table. One thing I've always found funny is when you lean a ladder against the ropes and you Irish whip your opponent into it, he'll go running up the ladder, flying through the air, and landing on his feet outside the ring unscathed. These match types really make me realize that a lot of the little features are what makes these games so much fun. Create modes are one of the biggest aspects of a wrestling game, and by this point we've seen just about everything throughout the years, from wrestlers to entrances, Titantron videos to taunts, and even finishing moves. But WWE 12 takes creation to the next level with the ability to create arenas. You can now fully customize a ring area, from the canvas, ropes, and turnbuckle pads to the banners, barriers, and announce tables. We've seen similar options like this before in games like Attitude and SmackDown, but nothing to the extent of this. You can duplicate just about any ring area from the past or present, or just make something completely new and unique. The main drawback here is that there's no way to edit the stage area. There's not even an option to select from different preset stages. There's only one stage by default, which is from the new era of wrestling. So if you decide you'd like to relive the old Attitude Era of Raw is War, you'll be stuck with this entry area that's quite out of place. But I guess you'd really only notice it during entrances anyway, so it probably wouldn't bother some people. Regardless of its limitations, this mode is something that creators really appreciated and would become a lot more advanced as the years passed. WWE Universe Mode returns with quite a few additions. First and foremost, this feature is now its own separate mode, meaning to play a universe match, you have to actually enter into the calendar, opposed to last year where any match you play will automatically be written into the mode. This year, storylines are deeper with more cutscenes and show intros, making this mode feel even more like a real WWE simulation. Another cool feature is the ability to swap a show with another, so if you feel like ditching Raw and replacing it with Monday Nitro, go ahead and do it. There's also a new momentum system that will actually fluctuate depending on wrestlers' wins and losses. Wrestlers can now become injured, with some instances taking up to 6 months to completely heal. Championships can also now be defended at any time given a match where the title holder is taking place, and speaking of championships, they've been resized to appear more realistic. Other cool little features include a draft, as well as being able to play through an entire show seamlessly without returning to the mode's menu. Overall, they made quite the effort to make this mode even better than it was in 2011, and it's quite easy to get caught up in it for a few hours. WWE 12 would be the last time we see the Road to WrestleMania mode, and it would also be a little different from games of the past. Instead of multiple wrestlers to select from, each with their own story, this mode features one story stretched out between 3 different wrestlers. The first part will have you playing the role of Sheamus for the villain segment. The second act has you control Triple H for the outsider story. And the hero story has you play the game as Jacob Cass, which is the game's default name for any created wrestler that you select for this mode, and was voiced by Austin Aries. The heavy emphasis here on the story makes the mode feel a bit linear at times as it strives to keep you following its agenda. For example, most matches contain mandatory objectives which need to be completed to either finish the match or send it to the next scene. This leads to moments in the match where you're unable to pin your opponent as you're waiting for the on-screen cue to enable a cutscene allowing you to advance. Or sometimes you're just not quite sure where to go exactly. But these moments, in my opinion, don't completely ruin the mode. In fact, there are times where they make it better. And luckily, there are checkpoints, meaning you won't have to start a match over completely if you fail, which can be a lifesaver as some of these matches are comprised of multiple segments and take quite a while to complete. We touched earlier on the inclusion of WCW in the game, and the reason that it's so is due to the brand being used here in the Road to WrestleMania mode. At one point during the hero portion of the story, Triple H appoints Kevin Nash the GM, and eventually in a plot similar to the Invasion storyline, Nash brings back the brand, including former wrestlers and shows, which is why we see the improvised versions of Nitro, Starrcade, and Clash of the Champions. There's even a War Games style match that takes place at Starrcade, but unfortunately without the dual ring setup. This was all done rather well, and that's really one of the best aspects of this mode, the storytelling. I found each part of the Road to WrestleMania engaging, and despite the sometimes annoying objectives, I couldn't put this one down until I beat it. So how does WWE 12 stack up against its predecessors? Well, there aren't any new match types, but we do see a lot of little new features included in the Predator technology. The Create modes that return don't see any upgrades, but we do get the new Create an Arena. WWE Universe has a bunch of new features that keep it fresh. And the Road to WrestleMania might be a little frustrating at times, but ultimately delivers an overall entertaining experience. I had a lot of fun with this one, and it definitely got things moving in a different direction as far as the series goes. It's absolutely worth a play if you're a wrestling fan, and maybe even for the more casual gamer. Either way, the price tag isn't very high at all, so even those on a tight budget should be able to add this one to their collection. I really appreciate all the love and support that I continue to get from you guys. I'm glad you're enjoying the videos, and if you haven't yet subscribed but want to stay up to date on my weekly video releases, go ahead and do so. It's free. Anyway, we'll be back next week with another Spotlight video game review, so until then, thanks for watching.